Evening all, and welcome to another edition of Friday Night Magpie Live on the eve of the home game with Colchester United, where two of the top informed teams in League Two meet head to head when Martin Patterson's Notts County, top of the table with 14 points from 6 games. They come up against Colchester United, managed by a pair of brothers well known to Notts fans from their exploits, in particular at Lincoln City, taking them from the National League into League One. They come back. What are our thoughts and views? Colchester are third in the form table, or joint second, I guess you could call it, with 13 points. Without checking Google, I guarantee you will not guess who are fifth in the current form table over the last 6 matches. On the show tonight, Colchester, they are packed with quality and they have our ultimate respect, says head coach Martin Patterson for Notts. Latest injury news on Jody Jones. It's more of a niggle. He's not yet free of irritation. There is light at the end of the tunnel, says Pato. Milai Parrott, the young Bermudan goalkeeper, made his full international debut for Bermuda against Trinidad in midweek. We're going to make a fuss of him, says Pato. I think he was due back today, but currently unlikely to be in first team contention, certainly for a place in the starting lineup, says Pato. Very interesting interview by the club, or I should say by Radio Nottingham, but in broadcasting conjunction with the club, with Keenan Bennett's. Talks about his European journey, explains part of that is down to being 50% German, and says so far in his career, he's not that old, he's had 14 head coaches, and half jokingly says he hopes he doesn't have a 15th while he's here at Notts. Not sure whether Pato is listening to that one or not. And Keenan, it's an interesting interview, talks about the TikTok culture and trending places in Nottingham. Finance, after our debate with Stell on stability and sustainability in League Two, the Premier League headed off any litigation by the PFA by turning down anchoring rules today. They have instead brought in sustainability and systemic resilience rules. I think the only person of the flock, and that includes me, that could quite possibly understand the remotest part of the new EPL sustainability and systemic resilience rules would be Wayne Wilkins out in Barcelona. And also, hot story the last 24 to 48 hours, Harrogate manager Simon Weaver saying or claiming that he's spoken to someone in the PGMOL who apologised and says the goal or the penalty decision should not have stood. I'm not saying he's not had that conversation at all. I've certainly not seen any official apology from PGMOL to Harrogate, or Harrogate even putting it on their website. There you have it. Penalty decisions are always contentious, aren't they? All that and more on our Friday Night Magpie Live tonight, brought as always to you in association with the Big Shed at the Trent Navigation and JH Accountants for your accountancy advice. Thank you to those as always. Let's dive onto the message boards and get a quick synopsis of views before we start diving into preview and other topics. Greta Maxwell, he's walking a disciplinary tightrope after getting a yellow on Monday night, for those of you who are watching, but I'm sure he'll be on best behaviour. Tough ask against one of the Cowley side, against any of the Cowley side, says Greta. Well organised and delightful purveyors of the dark arts. I'd take a draw now. Colin Metcalf, evening everyone. Tomorrow is the start of a difficult period. Let's get behind the team and help them through until January, when the brothers hope hopefully strengthen us for the final push to promotion. Hear, hear, Colin. So say all of us. Nigel Bosworth. Let's hope we can get all 3 points tomorrow. And it's welcome to Jonathan Hammocks. Jonathan says, huge game tomorrow. Considering the December we've got coming up, it will put us in a good position with 3 points. Part 2, I hope Colchester don't park the bus. We all know they will be indulging in the dark arts, so we need to be quite clever with how we approach the game. And part 3, I hope we learn our lesson and start the game with a fast tempo. I hope Martin gets into them before the game and we get a 90-minute performance. And I believe Jonathan is going to the game, according to Greza. Greza kindly got some goalkeeping gloves as a present for Jonathan. I got them signed by Radi Avramovic. They're here, if you can see them. So just drop me a note, Jonathan, and I'll arrange to hand the gloves over to you before kickoff at Meadow Lane tomorrow. What else have we got? Evening from Pythagorean and from Stephen Newton. 97-1 Rob M. Good morning, evening. I wonder if that's another one of our Australia fans watching the Ashes, Rob M, down under. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's match against Colchester. Ian Cooksey, who must obviously have Googled this, I refuse to accept that anyone off the top of their head would have known this. But 5th in the current form table are Shrewsbury. Yes, Shrewsbury. Didn't we all write them off after that midweek game? But Martin Appleton, and I guess he must have been under a bit of pressure, has started to turn that around. They're 5th in the form table. Well done, Mr. Cooksey, even if you probably did use Google. And own up, fess up. If you didn't, you have my undying admiration of football knowledge of League Two. Greza Maxwell. So do we have 4 full internationals in our setup with Mulai? Yeah, well, he is now a senior international, isn't he? And sometimes we can denigrate the smaller countries, but I'm not sure how you pronounce this. Someone will be able to tell me. Curacao, smallest country, they've qualified. They held Jamaica to a goalless draw, and away they go. Gary Lee, not worried about the Cowleys and their tactics tomorrow. But Chatwin, I think the way that Pato is dealing with Jarvis is brilliant. He dropped him from the side until he upped his game in training, and it proves you can get back in his favour with hard work. And I guess if an earlier example, Bud, was needed of that, I would suggest Lewis Macari, who was largely frozen out at the start of the season, but has come back now to be a first-team regular in the back line. Royston, evening all. Good win tomorrow will do us all a world of good. Need to get out there full throttle, says Debbie Caton. I suppose it could be Catton. Educate me, Debbie. I remember Tommy Caton, Manchester City centre-half, remember him. Sadly passed away all too early several years ago. But Chatwin, Pato is proving he is not only a good head coach, but also a brilliant manager. The way he also deals with the press and his players. Ian Cooksey, spot on, Bud. Pato seems to be the whole package. Ian Cooksey still trying to bluff it out. What's Google, Paul? Brackets, lol. All right, let's start a few bits and pieces. So we've got Colchester tomorrow. No, I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's just tidy up something that I know has been igniting quite a bit of debate on social media, and that was Simon Weaver's interview. It might have been yesterday, where after the 1-1 draw that Harrogate got at Meadow Lane last Saturday, Jarvis won a penalty. I think we as Notts fans would say it was debatable. Less debatable were the 4 or 5 other decisions earlier in the half. However, penalty was given. Matty Dennis scored. We get a point. 1-1. So Simon has come out with his interview yesterday, and that's kind of been translated to VAR shouldn't have stood, PGMOL, full apology, all the rest of it. Well, that's not quite what's happened. It has grown a bit of legs on social media. We always try and be fair and objective on our podcast. Simon described it as an unfortunate decision. And the actual words were, I spoke to someone in the PGMOL, which is the governing body of referees that administer all of the appointments and standards of referees and assistant referees in the Premier League and the EFL. I spoke to someone in the PGMOL who runs the show, and straight away he said, apologies, and it should not have stood. Now, what I find interesting, now I have no idea whether that was a private conversation or not, there has been no official apology from the PGMOL. I suspect there won't be. Harrogate on their social media channels have not published a story that says we have received an official apology. So look, I'm sure a conversation did take place, but I think it's a classic case of manager diverting, deflecting away from the fact that when they should have won, they didn't. But I know it's caused quite a bit of angst and debate among Notts fans on social media. Not there's much need to get any football fans going on social media, but that quite literally is the strength of it. So I don't view that as an apology from the PGMOL. We don't know who is spoken to. We don't know whether they said, oh, maybe that one shouldn't have been a penalty, but the other 5 should have been. And there's been a selective recall of what sounds to me like a private conversation between the Harrogate manager and someone in the PGMOL. But that's kind of the strength of it and where it is. It is what it is. I, for one, not really sure I would want VAR in League Two. You know, when I've been to matches live in Premier League and internationals, the delays really do destroy the whole fabric, vibrancy, joy, whatever you want to call it, of when a goal is scored, which is kind of what we're all about. So hopefully that's just tidied that one up. Adam Kent, evening. I need to predict 11 out of 11 for our starting lineup. Have we any non-runners confirmed, other than the usual suspects who are out longer term? Jody Jones, my gut feel from Martin's interview earlier today, don't think he'll start. Might be wrong. Don't think he will. I think there's got to be a good chance that Matty Palmer starts tomorrow and changes the midfield round a little bit. Maybe rests Iapenda. More likely to make changes when we haven't won than when we do win. So I do think there might be 1 or 2 changes tomorrow. Okay, what else have we got? Right. Debbie Caton, how do we pronounce it? Pronounce Caton, okay? How's the hip after your recent trek to the ground? Yeah, it's not too bad, not too bad. I'm getting around without the crutches, or with the crutches if the surgeon is watching this podcast. Okay, I'm supposed to have them for 4 weeks, and of course I am dutifully using them. And if you didn't see me walking up them 57 steps at Meadow Lane last Saturday without crutches, your eyesight must be a tad impaired. Okay, but yeah, we're doing all right. We're doing all right. Debbie Caton also adds, at least 4 penalties were declined. Admit the one given was debatable, but it was well deserved. Yes, Robert Minister from Down Under. Paul, I was watching the Ashes. Won't take long the way it's going. Whereabouts in Australia are you, Robert, as a matter of interest? Ian Cooksey. Has Brian Hill apologised for ruling out Phil Stant's header in the LDV area final in 1990 yet? Crikey, Brian Hill, that's an old one from a long time ago, isn't it? That is now Quick mental arithmetic. 35 years ago, that LDV area final. Them were the days, an LDV area final. Now we can't get beyond the Virtue Trophy Northern Group G preliminary stage. No to VAR, says Debbie. Greza Maxwell. I'm not biting regards his disciplinary troubles any road. Send me the number of that bloke that builds those gaming computers you promised me 29 months ago. That's to Gary Lee, by the way. I think Gary was nibbling away at Greza's disciplinary record on this show. Gary said, does Greza's yellow card still stand? Needs upgrading to a red. Yeah, I'll get a disciplinary committee of the flock together to decide whether it needs upgrading. VAR, no thanks, says Stephen Newton. Interesting, there isn't a great deal of appetite for it, is there? Never forgive nor forget, Paul, says Ian Cooksey, with regards to that LDV area final. S.E. Kent, if we were to start Jarvis, who would we drop? Well, that's when we all kind of start working out the permutations, isn't it? I mean, Jarvis, 95% of the time, has come on. He's not started a game under a league game under Pato, has he? Left wing back. I think he's had a slight taster at right wing back, not much. Principally seems to have played left wing back, and currently the occupant of that position is Keenan Bennett. Adam Kent, I feel if VAR was a thing in League Two, we would actually be better off with the number of decisions, brackets, if VAR is used for shirt pulling on Jatta, but wouldn't want it overall. I'm not quite sure what the costs would be. 2 or 3 people in a VAR studio for a 36 games EFL every week. You know, you're trebling salaries for a start, aren't you? Plus, I presume the quality of the camera angles that you need for VAR. You have to have all these special camera angles. So it's not cheap. It's not cheap. But Chatwin, I think Jody isn't playing his best football at the moment. So him being out might give him a much needed kick up the backside to get his place back. He's had a stop-start season, I think, hasn't he, Bud? You know, by, I think, his own high standards. It probably didn't help him at the start of the season when, as a result of a combination of circumstance and players available, he was kind of played as a 10, just in behind the centre forward, which I don't think necessarily suited him. And clearly when Martin had 1 or 2 other options and moved, places around on the chessboard, he was back at left wing back. And he's had, a few bits and pieces with injuries, so it's been a very stop-start to the season for him. Duncan Comrie, no to VAR. If we had to have it, it should be manned by ex-players. I could just see all the rows going on between ex-players in VAR rooms and the professional referees. Robert Minister down in Australia. Junee, Junee, if we've not had any typos or corrective predictive text. It's a little country town about 5 hours from Sydney and Melbourne. I trust it's very much in the middle of nowhere by the sounds of it then, Robert. But I'm delighted that your broadband works better in Junee than it probably does in lots of places in Nottingham. Ian Cooksey adds, Jodie's had a stop-start 15 months. Okay. Let's just go through a few bits and pieces then. Colchester. So in the current form table, not so top, 14 points from 6 games. Colchester, Bromley, and MK Dons have all got 13. Bromley, I tell you, are flying at the minute. And then 5th are Shrewsbury with 11. Colchester, I mean, those wins, they've beaten Chesterfield, Grimsby, and most recently Walsall. Their only defeat actually in those 6 was to Bromley. So they did the business at the league leaders Walsall last week. I know the Cowley brothers kind of upset a lot of Notts fans. For me, I have a lot of respect for them. You know, they do what the job is meant to be, and that is to give their sides the best chance of winning games of football and winning promotion. And I think they did an absolutely remarkable job at Lincoln. It was 2 promotions in 3 years, wasn't it? The big cup runs that they had probably wasn't the greatest move for them to Huddersfield. Didn't really work out there. But no, I've got a lot of time for them. I'll recite the story again. So Danny Cowley is a good guy. They were both teachers. They started out at Braintree, got Braintree into the National League. That's kind of their background. And while they were at Lincoln and we were playing in the same division, if you remember, the year we fell out, they went up. And Danny Cowley's daughter was playing for one of the Notts County girls' age group teams. So Danny would obviously be managing Lincoln on a Saturday, wherever that was, either at Lincoln or, all 4 points of the compass in League Two from Carlisle to wherever. And on every Sunday, he would bring his daughter over to play for Notts County's girls' age group team. He either was the manager or assisted with the managing and coaching. I think he was. Someone will tell me on the flock, I'm sure. Every week, you saw Alan Hardy a few times. But I think fair play to him, travelling over from Lincoln to Nottingham and taking a Notts County girls' age group team. Good on him. Good on him. I've got a lot of time for him. He's an educated man. And we all welcome Martin Patterson introducing a few dark arts to Notts County, don't we? So for me, what's the problem? He's got promotions on his CV. And we've had one of them in the last 6 years, despite it costing the brothers so far about 18 million quid. So he's got more on his jack than we've managed as a club in the last 6 years, despite spending quite a lot of money. And for me, that's the name of the game. So, I have a lot of respect and admiration for the pair of them. They might do it in a certain way, but there is no right or wrong way. A manager's job, as Howard Wilkinson famously told me once, is to give his players the best possible chance to win a game and win promotion. That's the manager's job. However you do it, you give your players the best chance to win a game of football. And that might mean in his early days at Notts playing total football with a sweeper with Pedro Richards, knocking the ball around, banning Radi Avramovic from kicking the ball long. And when they got into the top division, they got sussed. So he then adapted it and we went a bit longer. And you wouldn't have said, for instance, when he was at Sheffield Wednesday, that they played total football. He changed a flat back 4s, 3 at the back, and he adapted the tactics to suit the players that he had. Very pragmatic approach. What else have we got? Pythagorum says he has been on a train through Juni in Australia and Wagga Wagga. Well, there you go. But Chatwin, think we raise our game against teams that are currently having a good run, like against Cheltenham. So it's a good time to play Colchester. I knew this would crop up. Ian Cooksey, I see Mr. Hardy has been having a dig at Notts fans again today, saying we have short memories. Unfortunately for him, we have very long memories. Look, let's square this one away, shall we? Because again, I know it's brought up quite a bit of debate among Notts fans. Yeah, my son sent me a message last night. And I thought, oh, here we go. I think a few of his lads are involved with the Young Elizabethan League in terms of coaching teams and what have you. So the Young Elizabethan League is a big junior league in Nottingham, probably the biggest, run teams up to about under 14s, under 15s. Now, Alan has been a member of that committee, not something new, for quite a long period of time. Apparently, there's been a restructuring, and Alan has now become chairman. Do I think it's well advised? Not particularly. Yes, the past is the past. The reality is Alan is damaged goods in the eyes of a lot of football people. And unfortunately, the moment he comes out as chairman and issues a statement about corporate structures of the YEL and all of those sorts of things, I guess this was always going to happen. And I'm afraid, again, he's become the story. Now, I think in an interview I saw with the Nottingham Post that Alan says this is a short-term interim appointment while they appoint a new chairman. I think it best for all parties that that interim time is as short a period as possible, because, as I say, unfortunately, Alan has become the story again, and I don't think it does ultimately anybody any favours. Okay, look, people have their views of Alan's time at Notts, which is ultimately coloured by the fact it was on his watch that Notts got relegated, and he ain't ever going to be able to get away from that. The reality is he saved the club when Ray True had given up on it and racked up, large sums of debts. And when, it's a salutary point that when Alan bought the club, Notts had just broken their worst ever run of consecutive league defeats. So the worst run, and I think, paraphrasing, I've said it before, I think effectively what Alan did during his tenure at Notts was defer relegation out of the Football League by 2 and a bit years, because I have no doubt if Alan hadn't bought the club, Notts would have been relegated under Ray True, who at that point had largely given up. Fed up with it, getting a lot of vitriol from fans. But look, I don't think it's the greatest decision in the world to put yourself front and centre again by becoming chairman. There we go. Let's see what else we've got on the message board. It's bound to spark some debate. Ian Cooksey, I see Mr. Hardy's been having, you mentioned about the Notts fans. Yeah, and I think the point, I think Alan said it in the paper, didn't he, about Notts fans have got an axe to grind, short memories. Look, the reality is they will. Some will, some won't, but you cannot expect 100% of Notts County fans to all say, oh, Alan was really unlucky and did a great job at Notts County. It don't work like that. It don't work like that. Debbie Caton, adaptation. This is with regards to Howard Wilkinson. So true. I remember Pedro very well. Yeah, still, I've quite a few chats with this lad who's playing now at Jordan he's playing for Boston United. So I see him in the gym quite a bit, and son's a lovely lad, and we often exchange a few stories about his dad. I tell him the story about when Pedro fell out with Howard when Howard first joined the club, and Howard knew Pedro could be a little tad difficult. Howard was only a year or two older than Pedro. He knew one or two of the players were trying to test him as head coach. And so on a wet afternoon at Stoke Bardolph, remember the Notts training ground down at Stoke Bardolph, everyone? Back of the ferry boat. It's chucking down with rain. Pedro comes out for training with a towel on his head. This, not unsurprisingly, drew a bit of an acerbic response from Howard, who kind of said, please take off the towel, or probably a few more F's and whatever in the equation. Pedro declined, saying it was raining, and Howard sent him home. And then Pedro wasn't seen for about a week before he finally came back in. Howard read him the riot act. They agreed to get on. and the rest, as they say, is history in terms of Howard giving Pedro that sweeper role, which was very, outside of Holland, was very revolutionary at the time, even within English football, Um, Adam Kent, we only relatively recently got back into actively supporting Notts after lockdown. Who is Alan Hardy, former owner of? I'm not sure whether you genuinely do or don't know, Adam. Paraphrasing, former owner of the club, bought it from Ray True, got the club into the playoffs. Following year, had a midlife crisis, signed a load of players, made a load of terrible decisions, and the club were relegated. Ran out of money with his business, and the club were very close to going into administration and being wound up before the Reach brothers bought the club, is the polite, potted version of it all. Debbie says, yes, I live very close to the ferry boat. Great memories. Yeah, always big Notts contingent on that east side of Nottingham. Carlton, Gedling, Burton Joyce. It is, of course, where Jimmy Cyril made his family home for 30 to 40 years with Kathy and their family. Gaza Lee, Harry Kuehl, and a few exclamation emojis. Yeah, I try and banish all thoughts of that. Okay, so Colchester tomorrow. Moving back, yeah. So I would expect a few changes tomorrow. I think Matty Palmer will start, possibly at the expense of Iapenda. Whether there will be too many other changes, not sure. What do we think? What would you like to see? Jody Jones sounds like he has an outside chance of being involved in the 16, but I would be surprised if he starts him. I guess the left field decision is, do you start Jarvis? Did he do enough in the last 15, 20 minutes winning a penalty to start? Would you keep him on the bench and have him to come on in the second half? Wouldn't be massively surprised if he starts. Wouldn't be massively surprised. But we'll see. But Chatwin Pedro used to live on my road in Wilford and always had time to chat. He was the best sweeper we ever had. But Chatwin, in possibly our best ever team, I disagree with you. One thing, Bud, it wasn't possibly. It was our best ever team, certainly post World War II. Gaza Lee says Dennis, start Dennis for Grant. Interesting one. Yeah. Some people have spoken about trying to get two up top or having Dennis in a slightly withdrawn role. I do think that Colchester are going to be physical. I wonder whether they may take a bit of a leaf out of Harrogate's book, and if not, park the bus, kind of focus on keeping it nil. Yeah, maybe trying to exploit us at set pieces. Ness has looked excellent for us in recent games, and I think he's been aerially extremely dominant. Ian Cooksey, Palmer in for Iapenda, maybe Kuyar for Cerula. Would you potentially take a look at Jarvis on the right wing for Cerula rather than the left, which if it was left, that would have to be at the expense of Keenan Bennett's? Be interesting. I don't think any of us really know what will happen tomorrow. Sometimes you kind of know he's going to pick an unchanged team. I do think he'll make a change or two tomorrow. We shall have to wait until 75 minutes before kickoff, when we all avidly keep refreshing the Notts County Twitter feed, don't we? Okay. Goalkeeper, Milai Parrott, Bermudan, got a full debut in the week. Drew 2-2 with Trinidad and Tobago. Worst places to go, aren't they, to play? I think from the way it was positioned with the interview, I think he was only due back today. So he's going to be a bit jet lagged, if nothing else. Martin Patterson says, great for him, great for the club. And he said, we'll make a fuss of him. Well done to the young lad. It's got to give him confidence. It's good that he's playing men's football. Good that he's playing men's football. And it will be interesting to see how much he pushes young Griffiths for a place on the bench. You know, I'll be interested to see. May not be far off now. May not be far off. We'll have to wait and see. But good. A Bermudan international. There we go. We've got one of them now. Keenan Bennett. Yeah, started to get some regular game time. Done an excellent interview with Adam Hassel. I like the interviews where they talk more about the person rather than 4-4-2, 4-2-1-2, this, that, and the other. And it's an interesting interview about Keenan's career, globe trotting across Europe. He is half Germany explained, which kind of gives background context to why he's been playing in Germany and also in Austria before he's arrived back at Notts. Spoke very eloquently about the different athletic dynamics in Austria and Germany to playing in England, intensity of training, likes the culture of Nottingham. I thought it was a very good interview. It's definitely worth the listen, either through Notts County website, through the player, or on BBC Radio Nottingham's website. But well worth a listen. He speaks very well. What else have we got on the message boards? Hang on a minute. The eyes are going a bit tonight. Bud Chatwin. We're harking back to Pedro Richards' era. We could field a full 11 of ex-international or current internationals, and none of them English. Radi Avramovic, Aki Lartanin. Did Tristan play? I'm not sure Tristan Benjamin played internationally, did he? Don Masson, obviously Scotland World Cup captain. And plenty of them. Essie Kent, how do we feel about James Belshaw now we've played them? Was a few calls for signing him in January. I guess that was always going to happen as well, I think, Essie. Debbie says, I guess the team will remain unchanged. Where's the third team retro team shirt? The fan shirt obviously has been selling very well. The specific shirt, which is different, third shirt, I don't believe it's arrived yet. So I'm not sure we're going to be wearing it any time imminently. Adam Kent says, could Iapenda play further forward alongside Hall instead of Grant? Or looking at our permutations as to what we can and can't do. Martin Blaney, who watched the documentary on Sky about Notts and Munto? Yeah, I watched it. I was on it for about a second and a half. It's probably too much, to be fair. I thought it was kind of like a 6 or a 7 out of 10. Didn't think it was brilliant. Thought it was steady. I think Ben Robinson's book and radio series, Ben is a Notts fan. We've had him on the show. I think that was much more detailed, forensic. But look, as a watch, it was a decent watch. Thought it was padded out a bit for 2 hours. I struggled to kind of get the whole guy with the book and the spy from North Korea, and ultimately it turned out to be Russell King. I wasn't totally sure about that. But I mean, what did everybody else think? Bud Chapman says, I believe Tristan Benjamin played one game for St Kitts. You may well be right. Adam Kent goes as a 6 to 7 with me. I think the one thing about the documentary, and obviously, I've written quite a big chapter in my which book? I lose track. Hang on, I've got one here earlier. This book, which is available. By the way, I've sold 8 copies of this on eBay this week. You wouldn't believe it, would you? So if you need a Christmas present for the Notts County fan in your life, all the words, it's been out a few years, but all the words are still as valid and true today as they were when I wrote it, or what I wrote, as Ernie Wise would say. Special offer, 20 quid on eBay. You get free postage, which means I make about £1.25 from the book. It's cellophane wrapped. If you want it signing or dedicating it, I'll take the cellophane wrapping off and sign it as well. So if you do want one, you'll find it. Just Google it, drop me a line, order it, and it gets posted to your post free. 2 kilograms, that book. 2 kilograms. Good doorstop, if nothing else, or a bookend. Where was we? The documentary. Yeah. I think the one thing I have about that whole episode was that for us as Notts County fans, it's one of the greatest or infamous episodes in our history, in which we quite literally were broadcast around the world. You know, we gained global, initially fame with Sven coming, and then notoriety with how quickly it all unravelled with Munto and the non money. But so clearly we are all wrapped up as Notts fans in it, and it's the biggest thing ever. The reality, as I perceive it, as far as Russell King was concerned, Notts County was 1% of the equation. You imagine this huge spider with all the legs and spinning the web globally. Notts County was just one little tick over here. This was all to do with floating a company on the stock exchange and making hundreds of millions of pounds by extracting the mineral rights from North Korea, which I know there's a few leaps there, isn't there? It is true that Russell King had a signed contract with the North Korean government exclusively to market and exploit North Korea's mineral reserves, and they've got all sorts of these precious minerals. And what Russell had to do was give that company that he owned, obviously in totality, in conjunction with Kim Jong-un and the North Koreans, was to give a veneer of respectability, because the company hadn't traded or done anything. It never extracted one piece of gold, one diamond anywhere in the world, but it had this like piece of paper and a contract. So we wanted to give it a veneer of respectability. And it's no different to when you see all these Far Eastern betting companies, cryptocurrencies. What do they all do? They all try and cut a deal with a football club, because the moment you're on a football club's shirt or associated with a football club and sign a sponsorship agreement, you're instantly given a hallmark of authenticity. And so Notts County was designed to give Swiss Commodity Holdings a veneer of respectability. And if you can get Sven-Göran Eriksson to come to your football club, that's kind of like brilliant. Russell King also tried to buy a Formula One team, BMW Sauber. Again, you stick Swiss Commodity Holdings on the car, you do all the deals, and it makes that company appear legitimate. The plan then was to float Swiss Commodity Holdings on the stock exchange. All these other mining companies, investors, would then spend millions to acquire shares in the company, at which point Russell King exits. He's made hundreds of millions of pounds, and he leaves the thorny problem of how on earth do you actually get all these minerals out of the North Korean landscape. It's not his problem, because he sold the company. He's floated the company, he's took the money, and he's left. Matt Scott, who was the journalist for The Guardian, the Digger column, he kind of played a pivotal role in stopping it all. He was the one that exposed Russell King. He was the one who liaised with Sven and told him the background to it all. For his troubles, an element of the Notts County fan base sent him a load of death threats. Unfortunately, that is the world of football. I don't think Matt doesn't hold any grudges against Notts County fans, but Matt kind of he's no longer a journalist anymore now. Matt kind of exposed it all, and it is a fascinating case of an ultimate confidence trickster who sells you something that you want to believe. And when people want to believe something, aka John Armstrong Holmes and the Trust, you kind of end up believing it. Because you want to believe it. And he was a master con man. I've had a few chats with Ben Robinson, and when Ben did the book, they tracked Russell King was eventually jailed for fraud, released a few years ago, and Ben tracked him down to a bedsit in Southampton, where allegedly his family have left him and he lives on his own. And I don't think I'm giving too much away here. Ben is of an opinion that the world has truly fallen down around Russell King's ears, and he is now potless. Call me a cynic. I this is just supposition on my part. I'm not so sure. I find it hard to believe that someone who seems to have acted without scruples their entire life has not salted away, not insubstantial amounts of cash, and is, inverted commas, lying low for a while. Who knows? But there you go. No, I thought it was fine. Good read, but in the scheme of things, Notts County was largely unimportant to Russell King and the scam. There we go. Got some more messages here. Let's have a look. Gazalee, yes, I spotted you on the Sky documentary, Paul. Allegedly, you did have hair. Yeah. Well, we all know, following Notts for a lifetime leaves us with all sorts of mental and physical scars. In my case, I ain't got a lot of hair left. 1971, Rob from Australia, and Junie, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I would rather have Jarvis as an impact sub. Ian Cooksey, I was watching this game as well. Watched Peterborough last night. It was like watching Notts circa 22-23 under Luke. Debbie Caden says, would you be able to get this book across to my brother in Calgary? Yes, I can do that, Debbie. We have sent them across the pond, so to speak. Send me some details, get in touch, and I'll get it sorted. Definitely a good read was your tone, Paul, says Wool Jam. Martin Blaney. Russell King took money out of the club, but was never charged with anything. Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing, Martin, was he only got done or prosecuted because of the Jersey Financial Fraud Police. So it was in relation to Belgravia. And what he did, he was facing a large number of charges. And he pleaded guilty to a kind of a specimen charge and not guilty to a whole plethora of the other charges. And so that kind of plea bargain meant then, because he pleaded guilty to one charge, he ended up not getting as big a custodial sentence as if the prosecution had decided to do him on 27 charges. So, right until the last, shrewd, clever, devious, call it whatever you want. But that's kind of how he ended up on the face of it, getting a result and serving only 2 years and not being prosecuted with all the various other frauds. it was the Jersey police, and they have a specialist finance unit because of its tax haven status. So they were only concerned with what happened in terms of Jersey, nothing else, nothing else. Gaza Lee, Greza needs another copy of that book. Gedling Borough Council owns his first copy. I've no idea what the in joke between those two is. Greza said he's not buying, but you should definitely buy another book, Greza. You should definitely buy another book. Once a con man, always a con man, says Martin Blaney. Rob, would I mail to Australia? Yeah, I can get it there. Again, just send me some details. Gazali, we love you, Greza, really. I'll sing you too, with or without you, if it cheers you up. Lippy Jane, I can't get out of my driveway. Gonna have to get a taxi to the train at 6 a.m. Wish me luck. Well, get the Lippy on, Lippy Jane. I look forward to seeing you, because you only sit about 6 seats away from me, don't you? So I'm presuming in Yorkshire there's a bit of snow, frost, and inclement weather. Serves you right for living on a country mansion, some stately home next to Gareth Southgate, just north of Harrogate. Pythagorean, assassination of Kim Jong-nam in Malaysia. Wonder if some of that related to Russell King's handing out share certificates in North Korea. We'll eliminate that. I do not want to be on a watch list from North Korea or Malaysia, Pythagorean. Thanks to you putting messages out there that cannot be corroborated. So strike that from your memory banks. Right, Debbie says fine. Message details for the book. It's obviously a love-in between the brothers Greza Maxwell and Gaza Lee. They went to 1978 infants, junior and senior schools together, and most probably were the only two Notts County fans in their year in the infants, junior and senior skills. Lippy Jane says, oh, it's a badly parked Mini. I wish I was in a mansion. Well, I'm sure you will get there tomorrow. I think we're about done. Thank you for your participation this evening. Here's hoping for a result against Colchester tomorrow, 3 o'clock kickoff. Nice to have another Saturday and not be travelling up and down the country. Bristol Rovers the following week, don't forget. I think there's still tickets left for that one. I was going on the train until I realised, or I've noticed, that Notts are at Bristol Rovers 3 o'clock kickoff and Mansfield are at Cardiff. So all the Notts fans and Mansfield fans that will be going on the train will be on exactly the same train to Gloucester. That'll be fun and games, won't it? Anyway, we'll see what we do. We'll cross that bridge next week when we come to it. Greza Maxwell said we had a lad called Paul Marriott who was a Notts fan. I know him. He sits one place in front of me, Paul Marriott. I'm assuming that's the one. Anyway, it's a small world, isn't it? Thank you, as always, to Big Shed at the Trent Navigation and to JH Accountants for their support, as always, in enabling us to do what it is that we do. Thanks to everyone. I will be back on Sunday morning with the Sunday Supplement. We'll be doing a blog from the show. A blog from the match. Sorry, hopefully we'll try and get it up a bit earlier this week. We had a few gremlins last week, and we'll be back on Monday evening with the professionals view. Thank you, one and all. Keep an eye out for everyone at Meadow Lane tomorrow. Mr. Hammocks, don't forget, I'm bringing your goalkeeping gloves, so get in touch to let me know where you will be watching the game from, and I can give them to you. And let's hope for an enjoyable afternoon and 3 points from Meadow Lane Saturday afternoon.